What's going on, team? It's your buddy EFG here, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So, throughout my life, I've had the privilege of playing all sorts of different games and consoles, and whatever, you know what I mean, like whatever I had an attention span for. And basically, I thought it would be cool to go through some of these older memories and point out the good and the freaking horrible that came with them. So this first video is going to be on the first console that I ever had in my life and my introduction to video games, which was the Sega Genesis. Now, there's so many classics on this machine to talk about, but you know, some of them, they're real good games, but they have shit just sprinkled on them like that a little bit, you know, just enough that you don't forget it. So without further ado, this is going to be 10 Sega Genesis games that either made or broke my childhood.
Number 10.
So number 10 on this list is going to be Jurassic Park. Now picture this, you're young and you get this game and you bring it home, and you pop that bitch into the Genesis, and the first thing you see is... By this point, you knew two things. Number one, you knew that shit was about to be lit, and number two, you knew that you were far past fucked. But in any case, the game gives you control of two characters. You can either control Dr. Grant, or you can pick the Raptor. Both come with their own game styles that are different in their own way. If you choose the Raptor, the level starts off without a hitch and off you go. But if you choose Dr. Grant, you get treated to most terrifying cutscene in the history of the Sega Genesis. I mean, I'm not even joking around here. Look at this T-Rex. This is more terrifying than anything that was in the damn movie. And then it just eats the shit out of the van like it's nothing. As far as gameplay goes, it's a 2D action side-scroller. When you're playing as Dr. Grant, he loads up with so many damn weapons that he could start a small war. Yet strangely enough, I found it much more difficult playing as Dr. Grant than the Raptor. It's all about platforming and aiming properly, and picking up the health packs and praying. When you're playing as the Raptor though, it's a little bit more, he does things with physical force as opposed to Dr. Grant, who wants to shoot everything. So you just go around basically biting and jumping on everything that you see. This isn't a bad game at all, and if you've never checked it out before, it's definitely worth a look. There can be some frustrating levels though. I'll say one thing, fear the boat. Holy shit.
Number 9.
Next up is a game called Troubleshooter. This was released in 1991 as a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, similar to games like Raid and Trad and stuff like that. I remember a funny story that I got this out of a bargain bin at a Byway. If anybody can remember when those were still around. You play as Madison and her friend Crystal, and you apparently work for this creepy dude with an eye patch. And that's pretty much the gist of what you learn. The gameplay itself consists of either the screen scrolling horizontally or vertically depending on the level. It's advantageous though because you can spin Crystal around, so you have one person firing at the front and one person firing at the back. That way you have all the angles covered. You encounter all sorts of different bosses throughout the game, but nothing can be more ridiculous than the first part of the first boss here, as you just stay in one place and shoot him until he gives up. It's really that simple. Now this isn't really too bad of a game at all, to be honest. It would probably have been worth a rental back then, or the bargain bin. But when it comes down to it, there is one problem. And no game is perfect, obviously, and you always look for the flaws in them. But there is one problem with this game. For me as a kid, I like to have the TV up while I was playing, lots of volume, and whenever I would die, I fucking got to hear this. The most horrible screeching sound, as if they'd been just run over by a damn truck.
Number 8.
So for those of you who have been following my channel so far, you will see that I am definitely a huge fan of fighting games. It doesn't matter if it's Virtua Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, Darkstalkers, you name it. I've always been a huge fan of fighting games and the way they work, and there's something, I guess you could say, not intimate, but it's very one-on-one, feels more competitive, I guess you could say, in some aspects. But in any case, I remember the first fighting game that really made a difference for me in my childhood was Super Street Fighter 2. This was pretty much my introduction to Street Fighter, even though I played the one before, but it really caught on with Super Street Fighter 2. And yeah, I have so many fond memories of that. So the introduction is Ryu walking towards you like he's coming to whoop your ass. And he charges up a huge fireball and tosses it at the screen, and it's epic. It's almost as good as the guy getting his fucking lights turned out at the beginning of Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition. This game came packed in with 4 new characters, Cammy, DJ T-Hawk, and Fei Long. It was a nice addition considering they've been using the last few characters for quite a few games. This one also sported new animations, audio, revamped graphics, and more colorful environments. I never would have thought at the time that something like this, playing this, would still be something that I would love and cherish to this day, as Street Fighter is probably my favorite fighting game of all time, and I'm down to play it any day.
Number 7.
Alright team, we just talked about one of the best fighting games on the Sega Genesis. Now we're going to talk about one of the absolute worst. And I'm not using the word worst lightly. I mean it with the fullest extent, because whoever had the idea to make this pile of garbage was definitely not in their right frame of mind or something. So with saying that, something this bad, we could only be talking about Shaq Fu.
Shaq Fu is a fighting game based off of, you guessed it, Shaquille O'Neal. He's joined by a colorful cast of characters that have no relevancy to basketball, or really anything else for that matter, made up of mummies, monsters, voodoo people, and pretty much anything else you can think of. The gameplay unfortunately is a clunky mess, where you jump incredibly far backwards, and the jumps are not timed properly, and it's just a total fuckfest. There's a cheesy storyline about Shaquille O'Neal walking into a dojo before a charity basketball game and being mistaken as being the one, and he's out to save a small child. Overall, this game I would not recommend it to anybody. If you can avoid it, do so at all costs, because the fun factor in this is absolutely zero.
Number 6.
Alright, so we're going to climb our way out of the cesspool that we just put ourselves into, and we're going to talk about another genre that was super popular in this era, and that was beat-em-ups. There was a beat-em-up game for all sorts of different themes, but the one franchise of this style of game that really meant the most to me, I found, was Streets of Rage, namely Streets of Rage 2. I can remember playing through this so many times, and every time, even to this day, it's still a blast.
The game gives you 4 playable characters based off of power, speed, and technique, including this one kid named Skate, who funny enough is on roller skates. Ha! The humor. The gameplay consists of you going around numerous levels beating the absolute shit out of anything that gets in your way. It's a generic storyline, but this style of gameplay never gets old, and Streets of Rage is definitely one game that nailed it right on the head as far as how it should work. As well as the great gameplay, this game also has a ripping soundtrack to keep you right involved. This is something that I would recommend anybody who's never tried or heard of it to give a shot, because you definitely will not be disappointed.
Number 5.
Alright, so here's a question. What do you get when you combine Mortal Kombat with the DC world? If you ask somebody that in this day and age, they would either tell you get Mortal Kombat versus DC, or you get Injustice. But long in the realms before that, if you combine those two franchises together, you got Batman Forever, and holy shit is it bad.
Right off the bat, you get to choose whether you want to play as Batman or Robin. They're actually rendered pretty decently, all things considered. Along with that, you get to choose from different devices, but with no description. Unless you had a manual, you're fucked. The gameplay here is basically Mortal Kombat, but you're playing as Batman, and it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. This does not translate nearly as well as you would think so, and it starts to feel clunky and out of place after a while. And you find yourself fighting the same generic enemies over and over through each stage. On the other hand, there's also sections of the game that have little passages in the roof that even Indiana Jones couldn't get into. So as you continue to try, you have to go right through the center. You look at this, it's hopeless. You need to get it right bang on, and if you're not, and you have to come in at an angle too, so he fits through. Over and all, this game is not a pleasing experience to play, and I would not recommend it to anybody unless you got some time to kill and really have nothing else to do.
Number 4.
Alright, so we're about to dive back into the bargain bin for a second, and this was a really strange one. This is called Green Dog, the Beach Surfer Dude. I don't even remember how I got a hold of this game, to be honest, and I don't even know what it is that resonates with me about it. It could be the strange music, maybe the art style. The gameplay I remember being pretty fun, but all I know is I remember this game to this day like it was yesterday. Intro starts off with Green Dog with his face buried in the sand after he practiced what I assume is his incredible surfing skills. He gets out and tells you what a huge wave it was. Gameplay itself is a 2D side-scroller where you have vicious animals from all over the jungle seemingly out to get you, and you have this boomerang that you're tossing at them, whether it's piranhas that bite onto your ass or birds that fly right into you. Everything in this damn jungle is out to get you, it seems. You go back and forth between the outdoor jungle levels and these indoor levels that are kind of like in caverns. Again, anything from the water's got piranhas biting onto you, from these weird frogs that jump back and forth. It's either this or there's some levels like this that are skateboarding levels, and let me tell you, you're going to be pulling your damn hair out with some of those. Looking back on it, this game can be really tough at times, but also pretty darn fun. If you're looking for something very random and different to give a shot to kill time, go for this.
Number 3.
Alright team, so far we've talked about some alright games, we've talked about some garbage. So for the last 3, we're going to talk about some great games that are great pinnacles of the system. Starting off with one game that made me lose hair probably as a child, and that was Revenge of Shinobi. This is an awesome side scroller with tons of action, but holy shit is it difficult.
The game starts off with a crash of lightning that would make you shit your pants if you were sleeping, and a super dramatic shot of Shinobi here deflecting ninja stars like it's nothing, which goes to show you this is going to be badass right off the bat. The game itself consists of you going through level after level, whipping shurikens at everything that comes in front of your way. The problem is a lot of these enemies are fast to react, and as you can see here with this one, he just blocks with his sword forever and it's barely possible to even get through and get a hit. We're already at half health and this is only the first stage. This goes to show what the rest of the game has to come. And boy oh boy, does it ever get more and more challenging. Enemy variety pretty much stays the same for the most part, but there are some crazy bosses. Just take this one for example. This is the first boss in the game, and you gotta time it just right so that you get him to slash down with that sword, and then you gotta get in there and just fire a shuriken into his head. This is way harder than you would think. And if you know what, this is totally a game that I would recommend for anybody, but you gotta be prepared because as you can see we got 1 bar of life here and we ain't gonna make it. And that's something you're going to have to be prepared for when you play this game, is you're going to die, and die some more. And holy shit does it ever get frustrating. But great music and a totally worthwhile playthrough.
Number 2.
So video game and movie adaptations crossing into each other have always been a thing. Most of the time they turn out to be pretty poor, to be honest. You get the odd diamond in the rough, and that's what we're going to talk about right now with Aladdin. This game proved that you could take the cartoon movie at the time and turn it into the video game and have it be spot on exactly how it should be.
Where was that in the damn movie? The gameplay in this consists of fluent controls, smooth animations, graphics very similar to the movie as well, which is something that was not very common in this day and age. Even down to the theme music of the game is spot on to the movie, and it really puts you in the feeling like you're playing part of the movie. Most of the levels actually follow the stages of the movie quite well, and which is very surprising considering games of this sort of genre, they tend to steer away sometimes. I find it also very funny to note that this game possesses graphics very similar to the movie itself, as well as the overall theme, unlike its less than fortunate Super Nintendo counterpart.
Number 1.
So we made it to the number 1 game on this list. This game that's going to be at number 1 is super special to me for tons of reasons. And number 1, it was the very first game I ever had in my possession and I played, and it was a pack-in game that came with the Sega Genesis, and to this day it possesses all the right qualities, and I've never forgotten it since, and that was Sonic 2. There's not a whole lot bad to say about this game at all, to be honest. It's a great time to this day, and yeah, I'm happy that I got to experience it. This game is fast-paced, colorful, has bumping music, creative bosses, variety of levels, all sorts of scenery. There's really not a whole lot that can be said that's bad about this at all. As a kid, you'd be rocking out to these songs, sprinting through these levels faster than the speed of light. And you know, there was not a better time at the moment. And I couldn't think of a better way to start off, playing games and with something as fun as this. But yeah, I would recommend this to anybody to this day. If you want to have a good time with a nostalgic classic, this is absolutely the way to go. So team, that was 10 Sega Genesis games that either made or broke my childhood. Sometimes both at the same time. Let me know if any of these games gave you guys nightmares. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm going to try to put out more of them real soon. But until then, peace.